In 1964, we had the pleasure of seeing another Alfred Hitchcock movie in the form of a psychological thriller named Marnie. It stars Tippi Hedren and Sean Connery in the lead roles. The movie is an adaptation of Winston Graham's novel that bears the same name. The story follows a beautiful girl named Marnie Edgar, a young woman who only loves her crippled mother and the horse she owns, Forio. She has a hysterical fear of thunderstorms and bright red colors. She's also a compulsive thief with a string of successful thefts in her resume. Her method of operation is to obtain a secretarial position, establish a reputation for being honest, diligent, and devoted. Then she loots the safe. Changing her name and appearance, Marnie finds a job with publisher Mark Rutland, who falls in love with her almost immediately. Marnie panics at the thought of this arrangement, which she views as an entanglement, and she rifles through Mark's safe, only to be caught by him and given a choice of marrying him or going to prison. She chooses marriage, but on the honeymoon, her frigidity results in Mark forcing himself on her, then having to resuscitate her after she attempts suicide. Later on at the family estate, Mark unsuccessfully tries amateur psychiatry on the poor lady. The situation reaches its climax when one of her former victims turns up and recognizes her. The next day, Marnie goes riding, and the sight of a red riding coat disturbs her so much that she takes her favorite horse on a wild gallop that results in the horse's death. She's terribly distraught over this, and she goes to Mark's office, but finds that she just can't bring herself to steal the money for her getaway. Mark knows that she's headed there, and he follows her, and then forces her to accompany him to her mother's house in Baltimore. There, during a thunderstorm, Marnie relives the traumatic childhood experience, which caused her neurosis all her life. Her mother had been a prostitute whose leg was broken during a thunderstorm by a sailor client, all this done in the presence of the young Marnie. In order to protect her mother, the young girl had killed the sailor with a fireplace poker, producing a shocking flow of blood, and her mother ended up taking the blame for the crime. Having confronted her fears, Marnie has hopes of an improved relationship with her husband Mark. Alfred Hitchcock used his usual practices to bid on movie rights for books using an anonymous source. This was all done to keep the price down. But this plan backfired on him with this novel. The anonymity of the purchaser made the writer really suspicious, although he regarded the amount of money that he was offered as extremely generous. He instructed his agent to ask for twice that amount. Hitchcock agreed on it, but he had one condition, that the deal would close immediately. When Winston Graham, the writer of the novel, discovered who had bought the rights to the book, he said he would have given them away to him freely, just for the honor of having Alfred Hitchcock do one of his stories. Tippi Hedren said that she struggled trying to act frigid the whole time she's in scenes with Sean Connery. Her reaction to it was, "Have you seen the guy?" She was smitten by his looks, and Hitchcock often told her that that's the reason what you're doing is called acting. In order to film real horses riding without having to work outdoors, Hitchcock came up with the idea of running the horses on a giant treadmill. All the crew members didn't like this idea at all because they considered this highly unsafe, and they also felt like they didn't think it would work at all. Still, Hitchcock wanted to at least try it to see if it would. It worked without a problem. Originally, they attached a harness to Tippi Hedren during these shots for safety reasons, but it was removed when it was found to impede the shooting. Now, there are Edgar Allan Poe references scattered throughout this film. Alfred Hitchcock was a big fan. You'll notice that Marnie's last name is Edgar. In the novel, her last name was Elmer. Like Poe's characters, Marnie is subject to psychological terror. This movie takes place in New York, Virginia, and Philadelphia. These are the three places that Edgar Allan Poe lived throughout the better part of his life. The movie's climactic scene takes place in Marnie's mother's house in Baltimore. This is the city where Poe died under mysterious circumstances in 1849. Tippi Hedren and Poe both were born on January 19th. Initially, Hitchcock wanted Princess Grace to make her big screen comeback in this title role, but the people of Monaco just didn't like that idea. They didn't want their princess playing a frigid, compulsive thief, so she chose not to do it. After she dropped out of the possibility of doing the movie, Marilyn Monroe expressed some interest in playing this role. Hitchcock felt like this idea was quite interesting. Now, there was a scene that was cut out of the film where Diane Baker's character, Lil, offers Tippi Hedren $25,000 just to disappear because it would be better for everyone involved. For some reason, Hitchcock decided to drop that out of the final cut in the film. Hitch offered this role of Lil to Elizabeth Montgomery, but she was forced to turn it down because of her commitment to Bewitched. It's real obvious that Marnie arrives in Philadelphia on Saturday, November 30th, 1963. This is determined by the copy of the newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, that she's carrying as she exits the 30th Street station. This issue of the paper was published 4 days after filming began, on November 26th, and it has the headline, Crash Kills 118, which refers to the Trans-Canadian Airlines flight number 831 from Montreal to Toronto, which crashed at 6:33 p.m. on November 29, 1963. This all happened about 5 minutes after it took off from the airport. The other headline that's visible, and only partly so, states President Picks, which is referring to the establishment of the Warren Commission done by President Lyndon B. Johnson on November 29th. This was all done to investigate the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22nd. Alfred Hitchcock and Tippi Hedren had a major falling out during the filming of this movie. And there was rumors that by the end of the filming, he directed her through other people. He wouldn't even talk to her. It's said by Tippi that Alfred Hitchcock had been harassing and propositioning her every day while on the set. And occasionally he would punish her, as he did during the filming of The Birds in 1963. He let a whole flock of birds loose on her, and they ended up scaring and wounding her. She had refused his advances back then. By the time that filming was done with this movie, Miss Hedren told Hitch that she wouldn't do any more movies with him, even though there was another movie left on the table in her contract with the studio. Hitchcock basically told her that she would never work in Hollywood again. She told him that that was fine with her, that she really didn't care. And it pretty much was the basic end of Tippi's film career. She's never been sorry or regretted her decision to go that route, to remove herself from that abusive situation with Hitchcock. The reviews at the time were really mixed, but as time went along, the view of this film has increased dramatically. You'll be exposed to Hitchcock's storytelling in its purest form, and I find this movie to be an underrated gem. It was a pretty moderate box office success, though. It grossed about $7 million in theaters, on a budget of only $3 million. Take a look back at this grand Hitchcock film. You'll see some of the best acting from Tippi Hedren that I've seen in a long time. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.